We're hearing a lot about hydrogen these days. In fact, Energy Media has done a number of stories and columns about it. And today we're going to be talking to veteran energy journalist Shawn McCarthy in Ottawa about politics, hydrogen politics, maybe some policy that might be coming down from the federal government. So welcome to the interview, Shawn.
Thank you, Markham.
Now, I understand that the federal government is going to be releasing a hydrogen plan or hydrogen economy plan in the next few months. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I think they're looking for, as part of their long-term net zero plan, and they are looking for, a whole bunch of avenues to pursue. And hydrogen is one that seems to be really coming to the fore. For a number of years, there was a belief that it had been overhyped back in the Ballard days, and remember, BC had a hydrogen highway that went to nowhere, essentially, figuratively. And but it's coming back, and the view is, I guess, costs have come down, but for large trucks and other mobile trucks, ships, possibly even airplanes, hydrogen may be better than electric battery, and also for some stationary applications. So, there's a lot of energy in this country. Hydrogen is not an energy source. It is a means of delivering energy from one source to the end user. And there is a lot of energy in this country, and a lot of really surplus energy. So obviously, it begs a really close look by Ottawa. I don't have details exactly what they're looking at, but I know that they have talked about big tax breaks for companies that are looking at net zero technology.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a couple of sectors. One of them you mentioned, the long haul trucking, where batteries just were too big and heavy right now to be practical. Also, one that we've had a guest talk about is the using hydrogen to in place of natural gas, or maybe part of natural gas, in order so that you don't have to be retrofitting homes and doing
Right.
extensive renovations. So one of the things that appeals to me is maybe the option of doing some of this out in Eastern Canada, where the shale U.S. shale players have pushed into traditional Western Canadian markets. And I don't know that anybody's talked about this, but it seems that Western Canadian gas could be converted to hydrogen in Eastern Canada, and we get back to more of the energy security arguments and keeping our helping out our energy producers at home. What's your take on that?
Well, one of the big challenges with gas to hydrogen, so there are two ways, right? There's blue hydrogen. There's three ways, really. There's a traditional way, but now there's what they're calling blue hydrogen, which is a new process for transforming natural gas to hydrogen, but can also include carbon capture, because when you create hydrogen from natural gas, you still have a lot of GHG associated with that process. So it's not a net zero process unless you capture the gas and sequester it, which is being talked about quite a bit in Alberta as a way of getting to net zero. If you're going to ship the gas down to Quebec or Eastern Canada or Ontario and then transform it to hydrogen, what happens to the GHGs? And so if you have, in some places you have structures that you might be able to sequester the CO2, or you might be able to capture it and use it is another option. But that sort of big picture sequestering of carbon, I think, is really, Alberta's uniquely and very well placed to do that.
Yeah, that might be, now that you mentioned it, that might be actually be a competitive advantage for Alberta, and look, not only pushing back into Eastern Canadian markets, but also maybe even if they can pipe hydrogen, maybe even down into U.S. markets.
And you can, and as you said, you can actually put the hydrogen, you can mix the hydrogen with natural gas. I'm not sure about in a pipeline. I assume you can. I know for end use, depending on what kind of burner you use. Some of the big gas turbine companies, GE, Mitsubishi, Hitachi, Hitachi, sorry, are now their natural gas turbines can burn up to 30% hydrogen. So it's a way of decarbonizing to some degree your natural gas, again, depending on how you produce the hydrogen. In Europe, where Germany in particular is a leader in this, they're looking at using surplus renewables. So, you know, when the wind blows and the sun shines, but you're not, you know, your demand on your grid is not taking all that up, you can create hydrogen and then store it and then use it for when it's required, or use it in a mobile situation like trains and buses and trucks. There's an Ontario company that has hydrogen very much involved in a German project for hydrogen trains. So, you know, all sorts of applications there. So it'll be interesting to see how the federal government and the Alberta government, if they work together on this, do they support one another, or do they go off on their own separate directions, one with a kind of blue hydrogen theme and the other with what's called the green hydrogen alternative?
Yeah, and of course, the green hydrogen is made through electrolysis using renewable energy. And of course, right next to Ontario is Quebec, which has all sorts of hydropower and is already working on making green hydrogen. And what are they? Is that playing coming into the conversation?
I haven't heard it much in Ontario, but you know, actually, Ontario has at this point a huge surplus of clean energy most hours of the day. That one of the big complaints of the Ford government was that they overbuilt the renewables at a high cost. Complaint of a lot of people, I guess. And now we have this clean energy infrastructure, and especially with the pandemic, you know, they were way down in electricity consumption. We're actually spilling electricity, as they call it, producing it with nowhere to go, or spilling water out of dams or what have you. So there's quite a bit of clean electricity capacity here, and I would not be at all surprised to start hearing more about you know, locating hydrogen projects here in Ontario just for that reason.
This will be the last question, Shawn. It sounds like hydrogen is just creeping into the public conversation in Ontario around this. Do you anticipate that it'll be warmly received, or maybe people just really will be indifferent?
If you can persuade the Ford government has a climate policy that is very unambitious, shall we say. And so, you know, if you're trying to sell the Ford government on projects, you're probably not selling them on the basis of climate change. However, you know, if you can provide a new customer for the Ontario grid that's going to be taking wasted energy and buying that energy and reducing the cost for everybody else on the grid, because, you know, suddenly, you know, the capacity utilization is way higher, which reduces your costs, then they will talk to you for sure. I would think. And, you know, there's an awful lot of industry down here, refineries and so on, that use hydrogen. So I think it's a natural, and again, back in Alberta, it's absolutely a natural, and I know that they are very keen to go down this road. A lot of government and quasi-government, you know, the emissions reductions on Alberta and so on, money going into it.
Shawn, thank you very much for this, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again about it. I think that, as you say, that this will be an elevated conversation over the next little while, so we'll keep track of it. We'll talk to you again.
Good. Take care, Markham.